The assassin characters have a hero, Blaze in the Psyche. Assassins are based around when your enemy attacks, you instantly recruit a character and it triggers an ability. Example is Dagger on the Edge. When you recruit this character, deal 20 stab damage to the attacking character. Cards that go good with assassins is defense potions. Their defenses are fairly low, so you need defense potions to be able to block attacks. Smoke bombs allow you to hide your characters, therefore being able to trigger the assassin's abilities again. The snowstorm terrain has the fourth experience ability is level up, and this character gains for a free action hide this character, which is very helpful with assassins as you can hide them to be able to trigger their abilities again. The Terraria terrain has an action where if you control a dark character, which the hero for assassins is, once per turn you can hide a target character you control. In order to play assassins, you have to save your actions to be able to activate their abilities on your enemy's turns.
Now when you're fighting assassins, you have to constantly weigh the benefits versus risks of attacking, because at any point they can suddenly drop a ton of damage on you. If at any point your opponent doesn't have any actions left, he's not able to recruit any assassins and you're free to just attack him again and again. The exception being Blaze, who recruits for free. Some cards that you're going to be looking for when you're fighting against assassins. Silence, the spell, or the Silence Orb item, will silence an assassin. Silence persists even if the assassin is hidden, which means they're not going to be able to be recruited on your turn, and they're not going to be able to use their abilities. The Flare card and the No More Hiding card help to make enemies that are hidden become, well, recruited. And when assassins are recruited, they're not much of a threat. The Spikes card deals damage every time that a target's recruited, so as long as you have actions left, you can punish any assassin that dares show its face. Now the Training Grounds card, if you decide you're just not going to take an offensive stance against your assassin opponent, as long as you have 2 or less monsters in your control, you're able to give them a free experience every turn, and that increases their defense as well. And once their defense is high enough, well, most assassins don't do stab damage. And once you get enough defense, you can just start attacking with that monster with no worries whatsoever.
Energies, engineers, and machines work together in a very collaborative manner. It's impossible to use one without having the others. There is one energy hero. There is one engineer hero. There's not a machine hero. However, if you use one of these two heroes, it's very easy to get an energy and machine deck running well. Using this command, you can, for one action, bring out 2 machine characters, which they're not great, but you can use them to fuel your energy factory. You deal stab damage, killing off these machines here, but you put charge counters, which you can use to create energy characters. The main premise behind an energy engineer machine deck is to either overwhelm your enemy with numbers or fuel up to build a Wanderer Beta. It has 20 HP, 30 attack, and 5 defense. It's a very powerful character. And if you use it with Sally here, you can put charge counters on it to give it plus 5 attack for every 2 charge counters. It's a great combo to get these two going. At that point, if you have a Wanderer Beta with 2 charge counters and a strength potion, you're looking at 45 attack, which is very hard to defend against.
Now when you're dealing with these energies, these machines, these engineers, Fortunately, most of the tokens, not counting the Wanderer Beta, which is just the worst thing ever, most of them don't have all that great of stats. Mostly when you're attacking your opponent, you're going to be aiming to do overkill damage. To that end, you might actually want to consider using some beasts with some critical hits. Now, Jack the Galvanic if your deck is built around him, is great because he ignores damage from energy tokens. He can block all day. Zoe's Ingenuity is going to be your best friend here. Since it let you cancel an ongoing, you can stop their Machine Factory, you can stop their Energy Factory, or you can stop their Scoops McGee and Johnny Donuts. Any of those is going to give them a bit of a problem. Plague the last of them, or any golem really, well, either golem really, is going to be a great thing to add to your deck just because of their defense. Since they're building so many tokens, you really have to worry about defense decay. On that note, Perfect Block is also really useful. Now the Thunderstorm card is a bit of a double-edged sword. It does 10 stab damage to everything, including your own characters, but it's useful as a field wipe to take out all those annoying tokens if they start piling up on you. But if he gets a Wanderer Beta out, you're in for a real hard fight.
The Guardian class goes very well with warriors. However, if you do want to pick a Guardian hero, you have two options. You can go with Tuzu the Balanced or Jack the Galvanic. Now, personally, my favorite here is Tuzu the Balanced. He starts off with a fairly low defense, but if you combine it with Training Grounds, you can get his defense up very high, and since he has Retaliate, that can be pretty devastating for your enemy. Now, you put a balance of Guardians and Warriors in, and then a well-balanced amount of Strength Potions and Defense Potions. Guardians and Warriors are probably your simplest classes to play, as it's just defend with the Guardians and attack with the Warriors. Hot Springs is also a great terrain to have when you're using Guardians, as if the person does get past your defenses and deals your character damage, you can use its ability to heal 5 HP and remove all status effects that have been dealt to that character.
Guardians are a bit of a pain to fight because they're going to be able to sit there and just block all day with their high HP and high defense. It's hard to do any damage to them, and you get almost no overkill damage. Their 10 attacks and 15 attacks may not seem like much, but over time it's really going to chip down on you. So what you might want to consider is just taking the offensive, and some cards that are really going to help you there. Sticky Bomb will let you choose who you're going to be hitting. So if you see one that happens to be, low on HP, it'll help you finish him off before he can heal up with a life potion or hot springs. Intimidate lowers somebody's defense when they're recruited, and it lasts until your opponent's next turn. 5 defense may not seem like much, but it adds up. Blinding Bomb completely reduces your enemy's defense to 0 until end of turn. And since it's till end of turn, it can't be increased, which gives you a great opening, especially when paired with Sticky Bomb. Finally, as a last resort, Firestorm's going to limit you to 2 actions on your next turn, but whoever has the highest defense has their defense reduced to 0. So, if it's a tie, you can get a lot of them down to 0. Or if there's one with a ridiculous 50 points in defense or something, it's going to give you an opening. The other option you can go with is to use something like Machine Factory to get a lot of tokens out, and just start relying on defense decay and try to overwhelm them with sheer numbers.
The Spellcasters class has 3 different heroes to choose from: Skybloom, Arn, and Mr. White. Personally, I like Mr. White the best. His action allows you to put any spell from your discard pile into your hand, which is very helpful since you're limited to only having 4 different kinds of spells. As far as other spellcaster characters, Candace the Catalyst is very useful as she allows you to cast a spell as if you were 1 level higher than your character actually is. So, significantly increases the level of the spell. Shade and Ivan are both spellcasters who work well in any kind of deck. As far as spells go, which can only be casted by spellcasters, you have one that can handle most any situation you're going to come across. Fireball for damage, Intensify to stun, Shadow Veil to hide a character that might be able to block you, and Silence to silence characters. Sometimes getting the spells to your hand can be a little difficult. The spellbook is very helpful for that. The only problem with spellcasters is it's very hard to build a deck centered around spellcasters. They go very well in any type of deck as a support style character.
Now, when you're fighting spellcasters, compared to, say, guardians or golems, their stats are really not all that much of a threat. They've got relatively low attack, even for the heroes, so you don't really need to worry about them running wild with their levels or anything. And the non-heroes are almost universally really, really weak in both attack and defense, so it might be worth considering just bum rushing them. To that effect, somebody like Sammy the Agile, or any type of warriors really, is going to be useful. Beasts as well. If you want to shut them down, you've got plenty of options as well. The Silence Orb, or Gerald the Silent, or the spell Silence if you've got a few spellcasters yourself, is going to prevent them from using their own abilities. The Blades Up Above Assassin also silences them. The Adaptive Combat is a tactician card, and it's a little bit complicated. If your enemy casts 2 spells in one turn, you can trigger it. Basically, it allows you to banish one of the spells your enemy's using and use it for yourself. Which, turnabout's fair play.
The Thieves class is a very straightforward class. It centers around your opponent and you both using items. Now, you can easily control how many items are in your deck and be able to access them fairly easily with a thief. However, if your opponent is sticking to mainly characters and commands, it makes using thieves semi-difficult. You can use another man's treasure to banish an item card from your opponent's discard pile, if they have any, and be able to use it yourself. Item expertise is useful for countering items, and if you control SK, the art historian, it gives you an extra effect. Disorient is a command card that requires you to control a thief. Both players discard their hands and draw 2 cards. This is useful for forcing your opponent to place some more items in their discard pile.
Now, when you're fighting thieves, the best thing to do is just not use items. If you're not using your items, they're going to have a hard time turning them against you. A card that really works well against thieves is Persuaded by Power. If they manage to steal one of your items with a thief, that lets you steal their thief back, turns them into a 0 supply character, and puts them on your side. Beast is my favorite class. You've got a choice of 2 heroes. Yume the Infected for an interdimensional beast, or Nefarious for a straight-up beast. Yume's shtick is that she can kill one of your own monsters to gain any experience it has, which is really useful if you need to gain a lot of experience really quick. For example, if you're trying to take the effects from a storm. Nefarious, every time somebody deals overkill damage, he gains an attack, and his attack cannot be reduced. So he simply gets stronger and stronger and steamrolls as the battle goes on. Insidious is a great 1 supply monster, but he has a lot of drawbacks. He's level 2, so if he gets killed, your enemy gets 2 experience, and he only has 5 HP. He has 35 attack and 0 defense, and when he attacks, the enemy gains Retaliate. So, if the enemy blocks with something with any defense, he simply gets killed, though his attack does still go through. It does let him do a lot of overkill damage, and when paired with Yume, who can then eat him to gain the experience that he's gained, it works pretty well. He does die at the end of a turn when he attacks, which is his other big drawback. Luminous is a pretty simple beast, straightforward. He's got stab. Most importantly, his action allows you to reduce an enemy's defense to 0. It can't be increased this turn. As for other cards you might want to put with a beast deck, they're very focused on attack, so a couple of guardians or golems in your deck is not going to be a bad idea. I like to add a couple warriors in. Ethan the Resilient helps with keeping your health up. Sammy the Agile helps keep you on the offensive even better. The meat and potatoes of this deck is the critical card. As long as you have a beast, you can play it for free, no actions. It increases the amount of overkill damage you do by doubling it, or just increases their attack by 10 if the enemy doesn't attack, or doesn't block, basically guaranteeing that they're going to put a monster in your way. If they aren't putting monsters in your way, you can force them to do so with the Sticky Bomb. The Blinding Bomb is also going to stop the enemy from shutting you down with a high defense monster, as will the Firestorm. Additionally, the Firestorm, if you can reach 4 experience or 2 experience with it, it's going to give you some really nice effects to stack on your beast. Steam Fields is the area that I like to just fight on when I'm not using a Firestorm. Leveling up gives you a bonus in attack, and as long as you control a fire-type monster, you can increase your attack by 5 until end of turn for an action.
Beasts are very difficult to fight against. Your best bet, though, is to stick with something that has some good defense. Because if you can block them, you can prevent that critical from doing massive damage. Key characters in that are using golems, or using a guardian like Peter. Defense potions are also key to help prevent that overkill damage that critical expands upon. Perfect Block is a great way to help also prevent that overkill damage. A terrain that's helpful against beasts is the Thunderstorm. While it does do 10 stab damage to everyone, including your characters, it can help take out some of those stronger beasts that have lower health.
So for interdimensional heroes, you actually have a choice of 5 heroes. Any hero that includes the word interdimensional in their name is simultaneously interdimensional and whatever the other class is, which means it includes Skybloom, Auron, Yume, and Sue. Zoe the Ingenuic is the only pure-blooded interdimensional hero. She's immune to command cards, which is great, and her command card, Zoe's Ingenuity, gains an additional effect just because, well, she's on the field. Her other effect lets her recruit a scout for free whenever she's recruited. And when you get a lot of scouts on the field, you start getting a lot more actions than your opponent. When you have more actions than your opponent, you get to do more stuff than your opponent. And when you do more stuff than your opponent, you start to get an advantage. Now, the only other 3 monsters that are interdimensional are the Revenant, Lovox the Displaced, and Just a Traveler. And each of them actually have fairly nice stats and abilities on their own. As for field, I recommend Terraria because it has an ability which is only usable by light characters. And I'm not actually sure there are any light characters that aren't interdimensional. Its ability allows you to stun a target character and recruit them, which would be great against, say, assassins, or just anybody you don't want getting in your way, like a guardian or a golem.
For countering interdimensional decks, Return to Rift is a great command. For one action, you can return an interdimensional character to its owner's hand. This can be very useful to make your opponent no longer have any characters on the board, which will win you the game. Slow Potion is also a good item to have. It forces your opponent to spend 2 actions to attack with their characters.
Now golems, you only have 2 choices, and with the limit of 3 cards of one type in your deck, just means you aren't going to be able to build a deck that's focused around golems. Well, perhaps focused around them, but definitely not mainly golems. Now Ready the Absurd has great stats, and he's immune to status effects, though he is a 3 supply. Prague the Last of Them has kind of an interesting ability. He's immune to terrain storm effects, and for 2 actions you can search your deck for any storm. Now that means you can draw out Firestorm, Thunderstorm, Rainstorm, or Snowstorm, throw it down, hit your opponent with it, and not really take as bad of an effect yourself. When you're using golems, I strongly recommend the training grounds, because with their high supply costs, it's quite likely you're only going to have 2 monsters on the field anyway, which means you're going to be able to give them that once-a-turn ability where you give them a free experience. In addition to that, the training grounds scaling with defense is just going to make their already high defense and HP even more absurd.
Countering golems is quite a bit more complex than playing them. With golems' high attack, defense, and health, and the fact that they have pretty powerful abilities, makes fighting them a little bit of a pain. A couple of items I recommend are the Blinding Bomb to decrease their defense down to 0 to be able to take them out, Silence Orb to get rid of some of those really powerful abilities. Strength potions can be helpful if you're just gonna nick them and you can throw that strength potion down to deal some pretty heavy damage to their health. Now, Luminous and Dagger on the Edge have Stab, which is good to get past that defense. Luminous's other ability is 2 actions to reduce an opponent's character's defense to 0, and that remains in effect indefinitely. Just the Traveler's ability, when he's recruited, can target either golem right away, as the fact that they are both 2 or more supply, which deals 25 damage. Combine that with a Blinding Bomb to take away their defense, that can be pretty brutal.
As a note, one more bit of a weakness or caution against using golems. They are very high level, so if your enemy does manage to take out your golem, they're going to get a lot of experience. The Tactician hero is Skylar the Determined. Now what's important about Skylar? First of all, characters you control are immune to retaliate damage. And Skylar himself is immune to traps, which is going to be great if your enemy's running a Tactician deck as well. As long as you have 2 actions, you've got to remember, you can use any of your traps by banishing it, as long as its conditions have been met. Jake and Lilith the Unity is a bit of a unique card. For one, they allow you to use green trigger abilities as blue. Now remember, green trigger abilities can only be used on your turn, but blue trigger abilities can be used in response to another trigger ability, it can be used in response to cards, and Jake and Lilith turn green trigger abilities to blue. That means you can use any trigger ability anytime, as long as any additional requirements for that ability are met. Ike the Aggressive works well with warriors. For an action, he lets you use a warrior's ability, though it does damage the warrior. It kind of means that if you want to build a warrior tactician hybrid deck, well, Ike's going to be great for that. Now, the shtick for tacticians is that they're the only ones that can use trap cards. Now, there's a trap card for pretty much every situation. If your enemy's a bunch of spellcasters, you can use Adaptive Combat to send their own spells flying back at their faces. If your enemy's got a lot of thieves, you can steal their thieves with Persuaded by Power. Lethal Counterattack is going to be working great if you have a bunch of enemies with high defense but low attack. Retaliate is going to help against warriors or beasts. And No More Hiding is going to shut assassins down.
The best way to shut down a Tactician deck is to prevent them from being able to use their traps at all. Some good cards to do that are the 2 thieves I have displayed here, Chase the Saboteur and Akos the Perceptive. Both of them have abilities that can force your enemy's characters to lose the cards that they have equipped. Zoe's Ingenuity is a command that allows you to prevent the effects of a command. This is useful for preventing the traps that your opponent is using from triggering.
Now the hero for warriors is Gregory the Hoarder. His ability gives you 5 more attack for every 2 items in your discard. Your enemy can fight against that with banishment, but for the most part that means just stuff your deck full of attack potions, haste potions, sticky bombs, blinding bombs, flares, anything that'll help you get some hits in. Maybe a couple life potions as well if you want to be a chicken. But warriors aren't about taking the defensive. They don't have much defense, they're all about the attack and the HP. Item expertise works alongside Gregory. It negates the effect of an item card and allows you to draw an extra as long as Gregory is on the field. The special card for warriors is aggressively engaged. For an action, and as long as you control a warrior, you can stun the target holding this card and another target. Both of them take 10 stab damage, though a warrior controlling the card does not take the damage. Which means it basically lets you hit an enemy for 10 while stunning both one of your monsters and one of theirs. Rika the Voltaic is a special card, a warrior, who is immune to stun, which means if you use aggressively engaged with Rika, you face no negative effects while your enemy has their monster stunned and take 10 stab damage. The two terrains that I recommend for warriors are Hot Springs or Emberstadt. Emberstadt, its growth is mostly attack with a little bit of defense thrown in, and if you're going on the offensive, it's great. It has a special effect with fire characters, so it works well with Gregory if you choose to go a pure warrior route. The Hot Springs, while the warriors have good HP, they don't have any defense. So the Hot Springs healing is going to really help your card, or help your deck have a bit more staying power. This was also true if you want to throw in a Sade the Rejuvenative, or an Ivan the Organic. The main thing to worry about warriors is you're just going to be attacking all day.
The best offense against a warrior deck is a good defense. This means use defense potions, golems, and guardians, because they're going to be coming at you with a lot of attack. So you're going to want some defense to be able to absorb those attacks. Having strength potions also can boost your attack to be able to be on the counter strike. If you've got any combos or decks of your own, please post them in the comments below. Like,